Hi there. I have updates. I have stuff to talk to you guys about. I have to tell you what happened. We had an unfortunate incident with the General Lee. We have some new cars. We have some new updates. We have a lot of great stuff, so we'll get into that. Um, but check this out. The General Lee ended up getting a new engine. This is a 440. It's a 1977 out of a motorhome yet again. Dirty, old, actually completely rebuilt. We'll get into that. We'll just give it just a second, but it does have an Edelbrock intake manifold on it. It has the thermoquad carburetor. It does run now. I got to finish the exhaust and stuff on it. The original 440 is sitting right over here. My garage is a total disaster. We've been trying to haul butt to get this done because the weather is definitely changing. Here in Wyoming, we've already gotten snow once. It's supposed to get really bad next week. So we kind of have to just crunch, and because I have to be able to move the car around so I can get to the snow blowers, and so I can have my wife's Jeep parked in here. I got a lot of mess to clean up. I got a very short time to do all that, so it's hard for me to film all of that. But the General Lee did get a new engine, so let's start there with our stories today, and I can get you caught up to date as to what the heck happened here, because my poor dirty car is just sitting here collecting dust, and yeah, it's not going to for very much longer. I should have it out and about for Halloween, which is kind of one of its times. But yeah, let's get into some stories here. So, about, I'm going to say 2 weeks ago now, I went out to start the car to just move it around and do some stuff. I was driving it daily. Now, see, one thing I want to make clear about this, I did not build a show car. I built this car as my fishing car for me and my boys, and just kind of like a cool daily driver, just something I want to use the heck out of. I don't really care about the paint. I'm not out here waxing it and washing it 24/7. We actually took it out to the lake the other day and drove it on some back roads. It was kind of fun. We was, kind of just driving in the dirt and stuff. And my one son was just like, holy crap, we're actually doing General Lee stuff in the General Lee. And yeah, that's what I want to do with it. I'm not going to just trash the car. We're not jumping it. We're not doing nothing crazy, but I want to use it. Okay, I built this whole car. I'm not like a big car show guy. All right, even though we do one here, I'm not really a big car show guy. So we use it, and so we drove it out of town a bunch of times, take it fishing. We do a lot of like local things with it, things like that. But really for the most part, it's just a fun toy for me and the kids, neighborhood kids, stuff like that. Started the car the other day, and the oil pressure just stayed at 0, but almost uncomfortably long, just for a few seconds, and then it finally, with the car running, stayed at 0, and then it kicked up after a few seconds. It's like, okay, that's weird. Maybe it's the gauge. Maybe something's goofy with the gauge. And so I kind of took it easy, went around the block a few times, watching the oil pressure, jumped up to 60. It held to 60. There was no problems. Okay, perfect. That's good. So we're good. Drove the car downtown, drove it a whole bunch, came back home, parked it. The very next day, I was getting ready to go do something else. I think I was just going to go drive down to my wife's work and see my wife or something. And start the car, same situation. A few seconds, it just stayed on 0 after the engine was running. And then it finally kicked up. So I'm like, hey, this is weird. Like, I'm tapping the gauge and I'm getting out. I'm fiddling with everything, make sure everything's okay. But it jumps clear up to 60 and it's holding good pressure. When the engine was warm, it would stay, around the 20, maybe a little above, maybe a little below 20. But nothing, obviously there was no red flags popping up other than just that few seconds upon first start of the oil pressure being kind of weird. So we had the car parked, and I think it was like a Saturday or a Sunday, about a week, like 2 weeks ago. And these people wanted to use the car for photos for homecoming. And we were supposed to meet them downtown and all that kind of stuff. So me and my wife were watching scary movies and stuff. I'm like, oh crap, we have to hurry and go do this thing. So let's get in the car and we'll go down there and they can take some pictures and we come home, whatever. I go out in the garage. My wife's sitting with me. I start the car. It's on 0 again after it's idling. And I'm like, crap. So, but this time it's more than just a few seconds. It's like, 10 seconds later and it's still not. So I shut the car off real quick. Nothing's happening. Nothing's weird, but the car is just sitting there at freaking 0 with it idling. So I start the car again. and it's still at 0. So I kind of just ease into the throttle just a little bit, just to kind of see if, well, maybe I need to get the RPMs up. Maybe it'll. And so I put the car, in drive to kind of start to roll it down the driveway, because I figure maybe if I get it in a different slope or something, maybe something's weird with my pickup or something. So I just kind of just ease it out into the driveway, still 0, still 0. So I shut the car off real quick. Nothing's going on yet. So my wife comes out and she says, "Hey, what's going on? Like, we got to go." I tell her, the oil pressure is just not coming off of 0 and something's weird. So I'm fiddling with everything. I'm fiddling with the lines. I'm checking. It has plenty of oil. Everything's good. I mean, the engine I've only put 500 miles on this 440. Get back in the car, start it, and it's running for just a few seconds. And then all of a sudden you just hear duck, 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 duck. And so I shut the engine right back off. My wife's looking at me, and the neighbors actually could hear it. Something was weird. So the neighbors, they're my good friends, they step out and they're like, "Hey, what the heck was that?" And I'm like, I don't know what that was. I knew in my heart of hearts what that was. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not 100% sure, because I see no indication. I ripped this engine apart to just try to diagnose. The heads are all good. Rocker arms were all good. Everything seemed good. I took the heads completely off. The valves all look good. I'm fiddling with the rods to see, because my thought process is, so let's go back for just a second. So then I start the car again and tuck, 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 shut the car back off. Never started it again. I didn't want to hurt the 440. It is a good engine. The problem is, if you go back in my other videos, when I bought this 69 Charger, the guy gave me, believe this or not, okay, I know it's unbelievable, gave me a 426 Hemi with the car, right? So I ended up selling the 426 Hemi, but I sold it to a guy, and he gave me, I'll just tell you straight, because a lot of guys on here avoid trying to talk about a lot of this stuff. He gave me $5,000 cash, and I think I was asking $7,000 or something for the 426 Hemi. It was totally disassembled. It was missing a couple of parts, but the machine shop I picked it up from said they had those parts. They were just going to ship them to me. But the kid I was selling the engine to actually knew the machine shop, knew the guy really well. So, I mean, it worked out. But he gave me $5,000 cash. He gave me a 440 engine. It's a 1975 440 engine and two 727 transmissions. He says, "Oh, the engine ran great when I pulled it." And so, but he brought me an extra crank for just in case. Okay, the red flag should have went up. I understand that. So anyway, when I built this engine and I pulled it apart, I realized that every single bearing in this entire engine was shot. Every single bearing was shot in this engine. There's no way it would have ran. Obviously, would have had no oil pressure. Every single main and rod bearing were completely bad in this engine. And so I tore it completely apart. I realized that the crank that was in it was damaged so badly that it needed to be switched out. My bad. It's honestly my bad, not anybody else's. The guy shouldn't have told me it was running, but also I should have known when they brought me a full crank for an engine that maybe the engine possibly wasn't as good as he said it was. So anyway, I replaced the crank and I cleaned all the surfaces real well. When we were getting ready to put it back together, I did all new bearings, all new cam bearings, all new main bearings, all new rod bearings. Obviously the rebuild kit. I took the engine completely apart. I took the oil pump apart. I cleaned all the debris out of it because it was just full of debris. What my personal thought is on this is I think one of possibly the rods might be out of round, more egg-shaped, maybe not to the human eye. But because the crank was damaged so badly, that's the only thing I can really assume. And it wasn't bad. I just am not going to destroy a good engine. This can be rebuilt. This is a great little engine. It probably, if somebody bored it 30 over and put some new pistons and rods in it, I think you'd have a really great engine. But I did not start it again after that. I checked the oil pan. There was very, very minimal shavings. It's tiny bit sparkly. I guess one of the good part is when one of those bearings go bad, you lose oil pressure, so it didn't suck it up and dump it in the whole system. So there was just a tiny bit of shavings in the oil pan, and I'm trying to think here. I think I found a few little slivers of bearing, just like the tiniest little thing, because I played in that oil to see what possibly it could have been. I'm still unsure, but I wasn't going to mess around. So long story short, I started throwing things back and forth in my mind. I got to pull this engine now. What do I do? I want to go with the 6.4 swap on this car, and it will eventually get that. But I had a good friend of mine write me out of Logan, Utah, and he said, hey, he's in Tremont, and sorry, I stand corrected, but he wrote me and said, hey, I have a 440. It's out of an RV, and it really was. The transmission sitting right here has that big goofy trans brake on the back. He says, I'll sell it to you. I'll make you a good deal or something, Anyway, so we drove down, then we bought that engine, we brought it home. I started to dig into it a little bit because I had to put different oil pans, because I had to use the 69 Charger oil pan in the pickup tube. I had to do a few things, and it was slightly time seized. So I was like, oh my God, I just keep losing. I cannot win in this. So as soon as I started tearing the engine apart, it had so much crap on top of it for the RV that as soon as I started tearing stuff off, I realized, holy crap, this has an Edelbrock Performer RPM intake on it. Okay, that's weird. It has a thermoquad, but accelerator pump, everything was good. The carburetor looked really great. I pulled all the spark plugs. They didn't even have carbon on them. You could tell the engine had been run, but the spark plugs looked amazing. And then I started to notice that it had all brand new freeze plugs in it. So as soon as I pulled the oil pan off, I realized, holy crap, this is either a remanufactured engine or a rebuilt engine. Had basically all new rods in it. Everything is great. It was immaculate. So I took the valve covers off, had all brand new freaking valve guides, valves. Like, it was an immaculate engine. I was just so excited. So, we did the normal stuff. You put a little bit of diesel and you put a little bit of, just different sauce in the cylinders to try to work it. And I put it in overnight. Next day I came out, it just started turning over just fine. No problems whatsoever. It just, when they sit in people's garages, between condensation and things like that you're going to have that with something that sat for a little while. So we stabbed that one in. I'll insert some photos here in just a second. And we fired it yesterday, and it ran. And I had to adjust the carburetor just a little bit and dink with the timing just a tiny bit, but it fired right off and just started idling. It just ran like it was supposed to be there. And I'll insert some photos right here. Another really great deal about this situation is the car, I was able to utilize the exhaust manifolds. I'm getting older, and I'm nearly 40 years old. So the thing about it is, for me, I didn't want to fight those headers no more, and I had to fight them because I had a starter go bad on the other 440. And yeah, you basically have to undo a motor mount, move everything, do all this crap, undo the header, drop it down, slip this, and it's a joke. I don't want to deal with that anymore, but the exhaust manifolds actually worked on this. I mean, they're super duper close. Right here by the power steering box. No big deal. They're great. They actually worked out good, and I'm super excited. Plenty of room. You can drop that starter in minutes if you wanted to. But as far as that goes, the General Lee is well on its way to be back cruising. I am so excited about getting this thing back on the road, and my wife's excited about me cleaning the garage because it's a total disaster area. But I want to move on to the next phase here, and it's a total nightmare scenario for a car guy. I can't say that I've ever had this happen, and I'm not super disappointed, but I'm kind of just bummed. But let's get into that, and we'll move to the next garage, and I'll show you some new stuff. So this is garage number 2. This one's in my backyard. Yes. What you're looking at here is my son's first car. He is so freaking excited. He's 13 years old, and it is, of course, a 1965 Mustang. Now, I had a 67 Fastback Mustang when I was young, and anyways, we found this car, and it's got an incredible story. I want to tell you the story. And there's a nightmare scenario with it as a car guy, okay? But like in the real actuality of the situation, the deal couldn't have worked out better, and it's going to be a good situation. I mean, it's just going to be a great car for my son to learn on. You can see the busted Cuda sitting over here. He's just chilling. We got more parts coming for him, but obviously we're stacking things away for winter. So that's kind of where we are with the situation. Let me get situated here, and I will tell you the story of the nightmare scenario that is happening with this particular car. But again, it works out for the best, and honestly, let's get into it. I'm gonna pull up a chair here. These people came to my wife's work and they said, hey, we have some old cars. I was wondering if you guys are interested, blah, 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 blah. Maybe come take a look sometime, et cetera, et cetera. So we said, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll come check it out. Took us quite a while. We finally went out there and we started looking around and stuff, and we seen this Mustang. Well, we made a deal with my sons that no matter what, we have to buy them like a pickup truck. That's regardless of grades or anything else. Because it is Wyoming and they have to be able to get to school and things, right? So, but we told them if you keep your grades up and you do good, we'll buy you a cool car as soon as you're 13 or older, and then you can have something you can work on and build. Well, so we went out there, we found this cool little Mustang, and we was talking to the guy. Super great people. I have nothing bad to say about these people. The situation is just, it's out of our hands, and it is what it is. But it's not a huge deal, but it's just kind of a bummer because it doesn't happen very often. We bought the car, and they made us a crazy good deal on it. We only paid a few $100s for it. That's actually truth, all right? But the guy wanted the engine. This is where the nightmare scenario comes in for a car guy, okay? So we bring it back to the house, we get it unloaded, we crash into the garage a little bit, and we it was fun. We had a lot of fun. Actually, it was fun. I'll insert some photos here, okay? So we get it back to the house. We start tearing it apart. The guy, there was conditions, okay? There was conditions to buying the car. He was going to sell it to us for super cheap. But he wanted the engine. He wanted the engine back because he's building a 55 Ford pickup truck, and he wants this engine. So we said, okay, that's fine. We'll agree to it. I did ask him. I says, if it's a numbers matching engine, is there a way we can make a deal? Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, long story short, we come home. We start pulling the engine on it, and it's out. That's why the car is sitting up. It's the numbers matching engine. It's a numbers matching 289 with a 3-speed on the floor. Yeah. And so we kind of talked to him to see what we could do, if he wanted to, make any kind of deals, or if we could buy another engine. I had actually found a 302 engine that I told him I would buy for him and swap him. And he was very adamant. No, he has to have the engine. And so, we did our little bit of crybabying and whatnot. And anyway, this weekend we're going to get a 302 for it. We found a 302. He wanted the bell housing off of the manual transmission as well. So we're kind of just left with not a lot. So what we're going to do is, for now, we're going to make it an automatic with a 302. That'll be the cheapest thing for my son because, again, he's only 13 years old. But yeah, it's not actually that bad of a little car. I mean, it's still got a lot of junk in the trunk, but it's complete, and the body really isn't terrible. If you're actually kind of looking at it, it has the normal stuff around the quarter panel. I'll probably just do some quarter skins on it. That would probably work out good. None of this is bad. It just looks like the paint just was probably put on terribly originally, and it's just kind of flaking up. The surface rust stuff comes right off. It's no big deal. Obviously needs a windshield. But yeah, we got him a car, and it was just a sucky deal because I have had probably over 100 cars in my lifetime. And I've only ran across maybe one or two ever that had the original engine in it from the factory. And one of those cars was a 1976 Ford Gran Torino. I bought from a junkyard, pulled the door panel, found the broadcast sheet, build sheet, whatever Ford is calling them, and it was a PS 122 Starsky and Hutch edition Ford Gran Torino. And it was red with the white stripe and all that kind of stuff. And it did actually have the original 351 engine in it. As far as that goes, I can't actually recall another time I found the numbers matching engine. Now, see, in 1965, I guess, with the Ford Mustang, they didn't stamp the VIN numbers in the block. But they said you could basically tell by the date that's in it, if the date coincides with the stuff that's in the door of the car, like where the VIN number and all that kind of stuff is. And it did. The engine came 1 month before the car did. So, I mean, it was close enough, but it is a 1965 289 that was in this car. And kind of a bummer, but exciting at the same time. We've got the 302. We're going to go get the 302 this weekend, and we're going to go ahead and stick that back in this car. The guy actually has headers for it, so he's going to have headers. This car has a full exhaust on it. I think it was restored sometime in the 90s. This is the back seat, and the back seat is actually in mint condition. So I'm almost wondering if it's been recovered, because he pulled it out so he could clean these seats off. They were just filthy. And it is missing a seat, because this is actually, in fact, the passenger seat. I just pulled it off the passenger side, put it over here so he could sit and clean his dash and do all the fun stuff that us car guys do, you know, sitting and pretending you're driving. But the door panels have like a velour on them or something. Like, I don't know if you can really see that. Yeah, there you go. I don't know, somebody cared about it at one time, but yeah, that'll be the new project. I'm going to see if I can't get him to start his YouTube thing. He says he wants to start a YouTube channel, and he wants to start kind of building this car for his channel. I don't know. I think it would be cool. I know there's some Mustang guys out there. I've had all kinds of muscle cars. I've had Ford, Chevy, Dodge. I've had kind of all of the different variations of a bunch of stuff. I've had Camaros. I had a 67 Ford Mustang Fastback. That's really the only Mustang I've ever had. But, you know, they're cool too. And by nowadays standards, when I was a kid, these cars were all over the place. But now they're not as much. It's just like, again, like this junk CUDA sitting here. I mean, back in the day, nobody would have even batted an eye for this junk. They, you know, this is junk. We're not going to do anything with it. And they would have just scrapped it. But by nowadays standards, with the sheet metal and stuff they make, I mean, they actually make a kit to make this a fastback. I don't think my son can afford that, but I'm just simply saying that's pretty cool. But these cars are actually a little harder to get now, and they're actually kind of expensive. And for what he paid for it, I think he could have a really great start. But yeah, there's the Mustang. Guys, stick with me. We have all kinds of stuff going on. I'm going to see if my son's going to get his channel kind of fired up. I'm going to try. I would love to try to get into more detail. The only problem I have is we're just so busy with everything going on. It's hard for me to be like, oh, grab the tripod and set it up and let's start doing X, Y, and Z. It's, oh, crap, the General Lee's engine is blown up. I have to do something because it's such a big dang car that it's hard to move. And so having an engine and transmission in it to get it moving is definitely one of those things that we have to do before the snow flies, because last year we got 4 feet of snow in town. They're saying this year's going to be worse. Matter of fact, we're supposed to start getting inches of snow before Halloween, which is coming up. Like by this next weekend, we're supposed to be getting inches of snow. And so I'm trying, guys. I'm trying really hard to keep you guys up to date on what's going on. I'm trying really hard to show you what we're doing and things like that. But there will be more stuff. And I am trying hard to get this out to you guys. And I really, really appreciate you following me on this journey. It's been stressful. Last couple of weeks have been stressful. I literally had to pull like 3 engines in a week time frame, from the Mustang, from loading the 440 from the motorhome, to pulling the one out of the Charger, to putting it back in the Charger, to getting it running and doing all this stuff. And you wouldn't want to watch anyways, because you would have just watched me throwing expletives left, right, and center, and messes were made. I can tell you that much. But guys, stay tuned. Stick with me. I'll be back with more stuff. We'll probably have some Mustang content coming pretty soon, and hopefully some CUDA content, and hopefully some General Lee content. So stick with me, and I'll be back with more stuff. God bless you. I love you. Mustang. Yeah, that's cool. I'm excited. He's 13, and oh man, it's too cool.